The Maxine Teller Show is brought to you in part by the South Florida Water Management District.
Hi, I'm Maxine, and welcome to a very exciting show. It's the Maxine Teller Show, and I have a very special guest today, and her name is Beverley East. Now, for those of you who are Caribbean, this woman is bringing some history to us today. She is, of course, a graphologist, and I'll tell you what a graphologist is, or she'll tell you what a graphology is. But she has 2 books, and today we're going to do something very different on the show. She's a Jamaican by birth.
By birth.
Right. And she has written 2 books. We're going to ask you, the audience, to go out and actually purchase any one of these books, and you're going to read it. And within a month, we're going to ask you to come back. You're going to call my office, and we're going to talk about the book and get together and get Beverley back on the set so we can do an analysis and your review on her book. And we're going to talk more about the book. So let's just welcome her on the Maxine Teller Show. Hey, Beverley, how are you?
Thank you for having me. Really pleasure.
Thank you for being here. You look really fabulous.
Thank you.
And I love that top.
Thank you.
It's sharp.
Thank you.
Well, I must say thank you to Dillard's for our outfit or wardrobe. It's from
Wonderful.
Dillard's in Broward Mall, and they're our sponsors, so they provide the accessories
Very
and
nice.
the clothing. Just wanted to talk about that and give them other props. You know?
Of course.
Okay.
So we can get more.
Right. Now, Beverley, we're going to talk about these 2 books that you've written. And I have not had an opportunity to read them, as you know, because of our schedule.
Yes.
And you're
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you're not from South Florida, so we wanted to get you on the set before you run out. You were here for the book signing. But definitely, as we invited the guests to read, but we're going to talk about this particular book that you have written, and it's called
Reaper of Souls.
Reaper of
a
Souls.
novel of the 1957 Kendal Crash.
Okay. Now, I grew up hearing about the Kendal Crash, and I didn't go to many picnics because my mother said, "You're not going."
You're not going.
Yes. So talk to me about this particular book and why you even decided to write it.
Well, the Kendal Crash sits in my heart because my father's family, both my grandparents and 12 members of my family, died that night on the 1st of September.
Wow.
He lost 14 members altogether.
Wow.
And I grew up not knowing that they died like that.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about the Kendal Crash until I was 18, and I'm living in the house with my father.
And you knew nothing?
And he spoke nothing of it, ever.
Wow.
So when I was 18, a cousin came to live with us, and she told me. And then every time I would go to Jamaica, I'd go run to the library to read about the Kendal Crash. I wasn't thinking about writing a book. I just wanted to know what happened. And I would run back to the library. They said, "Let's go to the beach." "No, I got to go down to the library." And I just became obsessed with it. I mean, when 14 members of your family die, you want to know. I wanted to know everything.
And then they never spoke of it.
Never. My father never spoke of it. Never spoke. And then when I tried to get him to speak, he didn't want. He says, "I don't want to talk about that." And that was it. And then my mother would say, "Leave your father alone. Leave him alone." so we never. He just never spoke. So I relied on the library. And then over the years, I met various people. I used to write a lot of letters to people. And a friend of mine said to me one day, she wanted to publish all my letters. I said, "But it's personal, private things in the letters." She says, "Well, you have to write a book then." She says, "You really have to write a book because you have a good writing style."
Yeah.
So I couldn't think, what the heck was I going to write about?
Okay.
So then she says, "You've got all these interesting family members. Why didn't you?" So then I thought, the Kendal story would be an interesting story. So I started it, but didn't know what I was doing because I was raised in England. I was born in Jamaica, but raised in England. Okay. So I thought, I don't know enough about Jamaica to do it. So I thought, let me just leave it for the moment. I set up my company, wrote Finding Mr. Right. And then after that, the success of this book gave me the opportunity to go back and redo this.
All right. We're going to have to take a break and come back. But before we do that, you wrote Mr. Right before you wrote Reapers of Souls?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, because I didn't I didn't know enough about Jamaica to write
that book.
Yes.
Okay.
So I moved to Jamaica 2003 to write this book.
All right. We're going to shift things around when we come back, okay? Stay tuned. We're going to be right back. We're talking with Beverley East. She's an author and a graphologist. And we're going to tell you what a graphologist is when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Maxine Teller Show. My guest is Beverley East. She's an author and she's a graphologist. I'm going to ask her, what is a graphologist? Beverley, I've never heard the term until I met you. Who is a graphologist?
A graphologist is someone who studies handwriting.
Okay.
The science of graphology, we look at handwriting, analyze it, determine everything about you. Graphology is a 16th century science, and everything you want to know about somebody you can determine through their handwriting.
And is that true?
It is true and it's accurate. The only thing handwriting doesn't show is your age, thank goodness,
Oh boy.
your race, and your gender. And that's why 56% of companies in Europe use graphology as a way for selection process.
Okay, and how long is the process to determine this person's characteristic?
For me, I can do it in maybe about 45 minutes. I can analyze somebody for a job in about 45 minutes, yeah.
So if you just wanted to get just a brief synopsis of this person.
I can do a signature in about 1 minute, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Analyze a signature.
Okay, and what would that 1 minute tell you about the person?
It depends on how intense the signature is.
How intense
Some
is it?
signatures are very vague. Some signatures are very easy to read in terms of, you know.
Okay.
But you can look at someone's handwriting, tell if they're analytical. You can tell if someone's deceitful. You can tell if they're insecure.
Really?
I mean, everything about somebody you can tell by their handwriting. So that's why I felt I should write a book about finding Mr. Right.
Okay, we're gonna now she jumped to this next subject, so we're gonna talk about this. This is her. It's not really the new book, but this is your first book.
First book.
Okay, and it's Finding Mr. Right, a new slant on selecting the perfect mate. Before the show ends, we'll determine which book we're going to read first.
Okay.
But talk to me about
They're
Finding
both great,
Mr. Right.
of course.
Of course, they're your book. They're great. We've got to read them.
I write books as the reader, not the writer, because I write the book thinking, well, if I'm going to sit down and read a book, it better not bore me.
Right.
So I'm going to write it in a way. So this book is written like a reference book.
Okay.
So if you want to go out with a guy and you just want to know about the sex drive, you just go to the section that tells you that.
That tells you sex drive?
The
Oh,
sex
really?
drive. So you can save a lot of time. You know, if you just want to know if he has ambition, then you just go to the area that looks at that. I didn't think you should have to read the whole book.
Right, the energy
You
of
find it
sex
quickly.
drive. Yes, I found it quickly.
So you know, you just go to the parts of where you need it.
Okay.
And so that's how I wrote this book. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I know that this is more of a reference book. So, and I'm looking at it too, and I'm seeing that it is because you've cited a certain things here.
Yeah.
You said this was a
But
spin-off.
it's a fun book.
It's a fun book. It looks like it is, and this is my copy.
That's
right?
your copy.
Okay. Did you sign it?
I did sign it.
Okay. Where?
But
But that's okay. I'm just kidding.
And my handwriting says I'm vain.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Which I don't see that in you. You see, handwriting and just
Exactly,
analyzing
exactly,
first impression.
yeah.
Never make assumptions.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
All right. You said this. You wrote this before you did the Reapers of the Soul, which is a much heavier content,
Deep story.
deep stories.
And it's our history.
It's
our
history.
history that's been forgotten.
Okay.
Let me just tell you what happened that day. It was a church outing. St. Anne's Church arranged an excursion to Montego Bay. The outing, they went to Montego Bay, and on the return leg, it crashed at Kendall at midnight. I think if it crashed anywhere else in Jamaica, closer to Montego Bay, closer to Kingston, the fatality wouldn't have been so high. But because of where it crashed, they couldn't get to Kendall quick enough.
Oh, to save the
To
lives.
save the lives. Emergency
Okay.
response was slow.
Okay.
Plus, it happened on a Sunday night, sleepy, everybody not all together. So over 250 people died, and as I said, 40 members from my family died that night.
Okay, stop. I want you to stop right there because we're going to come back and get a little deeper into it.
Okay.
Where your family portion.
Okay.
We have to take a break and we'll come back.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Maxine Teller Show. I have Beverley East, who's an author and a graphologist, and we're going to continue our conversation about Beverley losing 14 family members. I'm quite struck by this, so we're just going to move right into it. Okay. Beverley.
A lot of people get sad that I've lost 14 members, but to be honest with you, I was so young, I wasn't affected by it. I would be lying to say I was affected by it. I'm affected by it now as an adult, but I wasn't affected by it as a child because my father, I didn't know. And my father didn't speak about it. So I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. But what happened that night, 1st of September 1957, St. Annie's Church had arranged an excursion to Montego Bay. My grandfather and his wife and 12 other members of our family took the excursion. They all went to Montego Bay, and coming back, the train crashed. They had a lovely day at Montego Bay. I spoke to lots of survivors who said what happened that day. They went down to the beach, they had a service, you know, and some of it is all portrayed in my book. But coming back, the train derailed. And I really believe that from all the investigation and research that I did, it was in a remote part of Jamaica in the 50s. And you know how country dark anyway. But I think if there had been a better response, more people would have survived. And so the fatality was quite high. 250 people died that night, including 14 members. We did have one survivor from our family. He was 13. He was jumping carriages with another boy. So when the train crashed, he got thrown way away from the wreckage. And I wrote about him in the book. And
is he still living?
He's still living, and he's got 5 children, and he's a retired teacher. And it took me 8 years to get him to talk about it. He would not talk to me about it. His sister died that night, and he didn't want to talk about it. But gradually I got him to talk. And even when he got his copy of the book, he said it was so difficult to read for him. It was still difficult for him to read.
You're going to a place that he buried so
long
many
ago.
Years.
And I also think for my father, one of the reasons I think he buried his pain was because he was in England. And none of the bodies from our family were recovered, so they weren't buried properly. So I think it's a double pain, you know, it's a double thing that you, first of all, your family die, and then they can't find them, they're not recognizable, and they're not buried properly. So it's a lot in one go. When I first started writing Reaper of Souls, the 100 pages, I was crying, boo-hooing, and I thought, nobody's going to read this book because it's too depressing. So I had to find another way, how to bring this story alive. Excuse the pun, but I had to find a different way. And so I thought, well, if I make my characters fictitious and if I take it from a point of tragedy to triumph, it is an amazing story. And the reviews have been great.
All right, so these are your 3
These are my 3 characters, and I love them.
You love them. They're fictitious, but their story is real.
Yes.
Okay, I noticed you have a photograph of the railroad.
Yes. I went to Kendall several times to just be in tune with the dead. I would take my shoes off because there's no gravestone. I would take my shoes off and walk on the ground. You know, people think, oh, she come from England, she's mad woman. But you know, I just didn't know where they were buried, so I would stand there and just think about them. And so that picture that I took, there's no train station at Kendall. It's totally demolished. So I went to the next train station and took this derelict station, which is Williamsfield. And all I was thinking at the time was, my family went up this train track and they didn't come back down it. That's all I was thinking when I took the took the photograph. My publisher said, oh, I'm going to use that picture on the front of the book. I said, but it's just an empty track. He says, no, there is a person on the track. I said, no, nobody was down there.
Wow.
Nobody was down there. You see it?
Yes.
But look on the enlarged picture. Look at that enlarged picture.
Oh my
goodness. Not only did he find somebody on the track, but look at that dress. That is not a 21st century dress.
No.
So that's what we put on the front of the book.
Amazing.
And then we created the Kendall name on the book.
All right. We're going to take a break and come right back. That's amazing. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the final segment of the Maxine Teller Show. I'm not wasting time telling you anything else. We're just going to go straight to Beverly. But before we do that, we want to say thank you to the Inverrary Vacation Hotel. They're the sponsors of our set. So when you're in Lauderhill or when you're in South Florida, why don't you stay at the Inverrary Vacation Hotel? And of course, our clothing comes from Dillard's at Broward Mall and our accessories. and they are our sponsors of the wardrobe for the Maxine Teller Show. So Beverly, quickly, I rushed that because we've got to talk more on the book. I'm so excited about it.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah, and it also brings back memory of Jamaica, growing up in Jamaica and hearing little stuff about this thing, and your parents say you're not going anywhere and all of that.
And everybody wanted to tell me a Doppy story. I mean, I wanted the facts. I wanted the facts, but everybody could tell me one Doppy story. And one day I said to somebody, boy, if I hear another Doppy story, I'm going to scream. She says, but you can't dismiss it because it's part of our folklore, it's part of who we are. So I created a Doppy in my story.
In your story.
And one night I went to bed and I dreamt about a lady in a blue dress. And I thought, yes, she's going to be my Doppy. So I wrote her in the story. So my friend's mother called me up one night. She says, well, I don't understand how Donovan had sex with the Doppy. How'd that go? I said, Miss Morris, he just did.
You know what,
Beverly,
before you even tell me anymore, I would like for you to tell the audience how they can get a copy of your book. How they can get Finding Mr. Right.
Okay, if they want the copy of the book, either books directly from me, autographed, they can call my office, 202-434-8767. That's in Washington, D.C., and we will send the books out. If you don't want an autographed copy, you can get Kendall, the Reaper of Souls book on Amazon.com. And I think the Finding Mr. Right, I think it's still on Amazon. I have not looked recently, but because it's an older book. But if you want autographed copies, come directly to me at 202-434-8767, or my email address is handwriting, of course, handwriting3, the digit 3, at AOL.com.
All right, very good. All right, let's just get back into this book, because you say it's a little provocative in a certain area, but clean. And that's what sells, unfortunately. That's what sells. I mean, there's so much out there to distract you in the course of a day. So if you're gonna write a good book, you need to have something to hold the person's attention. And so there is some sus. I love that word. I learned it in Jamaica. Yes, sus. Sus. Yes. So there is some sus. There is a murder. There is lots of different things that happen in the book that you don't expect. And also, because I was raised in England, you know, my mother took me as hand luggage over there. I had no choice. I felt that I had to carry two of my characters to London to show the side of London in the 50s that I knew. Because everything I knew about, I didn't know anything about Jamaica in the 50s. So everything I've written about Jamaica in the 50s is through other people's interviews and what I've read and what I've seen. But because I lived through the London in the 50s, I could do that much more justice. All right, very good. Most of this, I haven't read it yet. I'm anxious to read it. So what I'm asking my audience to do is get a copy from Amazon.com, and if you want, Beverly gave her information. We're gonna take this on as our first task on the Maxine Teller Show, to be our first reading. And you can call my office at 954-580-0227, and we'll set you up, decide who's going to read the book, and then we'll get together. We'll probably have lunch or whatever in our office and do a book review, and then we'll call Beverly, and we'll get back on the show with a review on your book. How does that sound?
That sounds fantastic. I may even fly back if that's okay.
But you have to fly back. Or you want us to come to Washington, D.C. with all the ladies?
Yes, or meet in Jamaica.
Meet in Jamaica.
Who knows?
That's a thought. That's really a thought.
Everything's possible.
All right. Well, Beverly, it has been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Yes, and of course, we're going to work together on this book.
Of course.
And I'm anxious to do this, not just for me, but for the show.
Yes, and then, by the time they've read it, they can say, when the movie comes, they say, well, I read the book so many months ago.
All right. Or we'll be in the movie.
Yes.
Okay, folks, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of the Maxine Teller Show. Join us next week, same time, right here.
The Maxine Teller Show has been brought to you in part by the South Florida Water Management District, managing and protecting our region's water resources.